Hello and welcome to the Adam Shilton podcast, where we'll help you level up your life by mastering tech, boosting productivity, and sharpening your mind. I'm your host, Adam Shilton. I'm a top voice, technologist, and speaker, and I'm on a mission to help you augment your potential. Join me as we support you on your journey to becoming an irreplaceable human being. Please like and subscribe. This episode is a replay from a keynote I gave at the Grow CFO Global Finance Summit in November 24, where I explore AI and data analysis. In it, we cover Python and Excel, real-world successes and failures with machine learning, AI tool comparisons, the evolution towards autonomous AI assistance, a practical framework for selecting AI tools, the 3 pillars working with data, an update on AI capabilities, and much, much more. If you're listening on audio and want to see the visuals, make sure to check out the YouTube channel. Either way, I hope you enjoy.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the third session on today's Global Finance Summit. Really excited about this one. We're looking at really something that is right up to date in this session. Got Adam Shilton with us. Adam is Head of Partnerships in Grow CFO and also the founder of Shilton Digital. And Adam runs within the XLF program, the AI and automation courses. So Adam is really the authority on AI-powered data insights. So Adam, over to you for an exciting session.
Thank you very much, Kevin. Can you hear me okay still?
Yeah, can hear you absolutely fine.
Perfect, cool. I've got a new microphone, so hopefully I'm coming through loud and clear.
Sounds good.
All good. So yeah, thanks for joining the session, everybody. It's great to have you again. So yeah, for those of you who don't know me, I'm Adam Shilton. I did the last summit and the summit before that. We're going to recap some of the areas that we touched on in the summit at the beginning of the year, actually, because some of them are very relevant today. So I'll whiz through my initial slide quickly, but the point of today's session is looking at how AI is transforming data analysis and enabling faster and more accurate insight. So it's going to be quite a wide-ranging session, but hopefully one that proves to be really useful for you. Now, I want to start with this quote that ended my last summit, which was 60% of strategic decisions are expected to be made using AI in 5 years. Now, the reason that I've emphasized using there is because there will always be a human involved in that decision-making piece, but it just goes to show how prevalent Deloitte think that AI is going to be involved in those decisions. And this is what we're going to start piecing together today, you know, whether it's using AI for data cleanliness or data for analysis or data for visualization, it's all going to support that decision-making process as we move into the future. So I just wanted to open with that to set the scene. And then what I want you to take away today is knowledge of what different data tasks AI can support you with. And we're going to be looking at how I categorize data tasks as we go throughout the session. But as a loose structure, I'm going to recover the distinction between traditional AI and generative AI, because that's going to be very important as we go through this session. I'm then going to look at some examples that I ran again earlier on this year and show you how that is all changing with the advent of some of these new tools that are evolving at a rapid pace. And then I'm going to give you a bit of a framework for trying to determine what sort of AI data tool is going to be right for your specific purposes. So again, excited to get started with this and share some knowledge. So lots of you know me. You've been on my previous sessions, I'm sure. I spent my life in tech, or the last 10 years in tech. I had my birthday yesterday, so it was very apparent how long I've been doing this for. My career was originally from the finance, software, and ERP space, but I always enjoyed using the tech more than I enjoyed the sales and marketing side of it. So I've implemented ERP and CRM systems. I've gone through endless software selection processes. Then when AI was released, you know, I started writing prompts back in the back end of 2022, and I've seen those evolve. So I've produced hundreds, if not thousands. And then using AI, this is directly relevant to some of the topics we're going to discuss today, I've turned hours of manual work into minutes using AI to produce code. So I'm really keen on sharing this knowledge with you today. So that's a little bit about me. And as Kevin said previously, I'm also a course facilitator at Grow CFO. We've launched our new XLF program, and I do 2 sessions, a little bit more information at the back of this. One is on AI chatbots, improving productivity. So that's 3 workshops across 3 weeks, 2 hours each. And then no code automation, streamlining finance workflows is the other one. So some of what I'm covering today will hint at some of the stuff that we go through in the training. So you're getting a couple of bonuses today as well, which is cool. So let's get cracking with different types of AI. Now, it's important that we split this in 2. So we've got traditional machine learning type AI, which is predominantly pattern recognition built atop of algorithms. And we're going to talk more about that in a second. And then generative AI, which specializes in creating new data instances that resemble its training data. Again, it is pattern recognition. Yeah, generative AI, like predictive text, is looking at the massive data set that's trained on and trying to come up with the most logical progression in terms of what comes next. Yeah, but until now, and again, some of the tools are working really well, generative AI has always been really poor at analyzing large data sets. And we're not going to go into that discussion today. We do have a couple of comparisons that touch on it. But if we look at the beginning of this year, or even like 18 months ago, if you tried to upload any sort of data to an AI chatbot, whether it was ChatGPT, Claude by Anthropic, Microsoft Copilot, you'd get some issues because it wouldn't be able to understand enough of the data to produce an informed answer for you. And that's why traditional machine learning is still the best if you've got large data sets, because you're not trying to generate anything, you're just trying to analyze, infer trends, make predictions. Yeah. Now, some tools have machine learning built into them, as we'll discuss, but you can manually tie your data to machine learning algorithms, as we'll be touching on right now. So firstly, we've got a quick question to get things started. It help inform discussions and obviously build more useful content for you. So Kevin, I don't know whether you want to throw it up on screen. Very quick question. What data AI tools are you using right now? I'm keen to learn. So the options we've got are Power BI. We've got dedicated FP&A platforms. So a couple of examples there, Planful, Anaplan, and so on. Excel, ChatGPT code interpreter. So that's when you upload data to ChatGPT and it does that analysis in the background. And then we've got Claude data analysis, which is a new contender, which we'll discuss in a little bit, or other. So if you spend a few seconds doing that, that'll be really useful.
And we'll give people a couple more seconds to look at that, Adam, and then we'll flip the results up.
Okay, cool. That'd be really interesting to learn.
Okay. Interesting one. Your Claude. Nobody. Absolutely nobody.
Ah, poor Claude. It's all right. I might change some minds.
Okay. Shall we? Okay, I'm going to count down. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Poll closing. And shall we share the results on that?
Please do, yeah. Ah, there we go. Excellent. Yes. So Excel, you're going to like this session. So a lot of people using Excel, a lot of people using Power BI, which again is logical, and then less using dedicated platforms, but that's understandable. Interesting to know what the other is. And then people have already experimented with ChatGPT. No, that's fabulous. That's really useful to know. Really appreciate you responding to that. And I had to bite my tongue in doing the countdown outro, Kevin, but that would be wasted on our international audience. I think that's more of a UK thing. People can Google or ChatGPT countdown if they want to learn more. So I'll leave that hanging there. So yeah, cool. If we want to close that off, I think I can close, can't I? Oh, there we go. Cool. So let's go on to machine learning in action. So I'm going to whiz through some of these because, as I say, we touched on them in previous sessions, and in the interest of time, we don't have the time to go through everything in the same level of detail as we did last time. But one of the key applications of machine learning is something called outlier detection. And this is when AI will try and spot something that doesn't quite add up. So we're not making a prediction, we're not trying to analyze. Well, we are analyzing, but we're trying to spot something that doesn't follow a pattern. So instead of using a pattern to create a prediction of what the pattern's going to be, we're using a pattern to spot gaps in the pattern. So the example here, month-end journal. So we've got GL account, a brief description, and then dimensions on the right. And then we've got transaction history, which could be an amount and a department and so on and so forth. So that's just an example of the data that we might use. And each of those bits of data is either statistical or declarative knowledge. Now, statistical knowledge, exactly what it describes, it's generally numeric. Stuff that's pulled out from the data set. Stuff that exists, whether it's a department, whether it's an amount, and so on. And then declarative knowledge, which is part of what you train your algorithm on. So I am declaring that all transactions must have a supplier and a department. I'm declaring that all transactions that relate to ABC must be assigned to marketing, and so on and so forth. So this is where that training comes in. But in using these models and these outliers, we can detect whether something adds up or whether it doesn't. So you can see here that we've got a couple that don't add up. So we've got either relating to the amounts. Looking at that one, yes, where it's flagged as an outlier, we've got an incorrect department, we've got an amount exceeded, and then we've got an incorrect supplier as well. So you can see quickly how a bit of training data used with your current data can then be used to detect whether there is an outlier or not. And the more data you've got, the more of a data set that you've got to make your predictions and your outlier detection accurate. Now, a lot of these outlier detection mechanisms, these machine learning algorithms, are built into platforms that you might use every day. So platforms like Sage Intacct, some of the dedicated finance platforms have got this logic built in. So my first tip is speak to whoever supplies your finance software, see what sort of AI capability they've got, either from an outlier detection or from a predictive analytics perspective. On the subject of predictive analytics, let's just have a look at some of these algorithms that exist. And these are going to be more relevant to you because, and again, I'm going to do a bit of a teaser. We are going to be looking at Python in Excel in a bit, which is very new. But all of these algorithms will become more familiar with you as you start using them. Now, previously, you might have needed a machine learning engineer or a data scientist to help set this up for you. But using AI, you can now use these models to make predictions of different types. So different models have different outcomes. So you can read through all of that. We can share the slides after the fact. The ones that I've used in my tests are ARIMA and Profit, just because they tend to be the easiest. The simple one is linear regression, and we've got some examples of those. So what I did earlier this year is I used AI with a dummy data set to help me use machine learning to make predictions from my data. So the steps I followed were just making sure the data was formatted correctly, that the data was loaded into a data frame, and again, don't need to go into the technical side of things, train the algorithm, ran the forecast, visualize the forecast. And I did it with varying levels of success. So the first one was the spend forecast. So I generated some dummy spend data. It wasn't that much. So you can see 88 rows. I tried using the ARIMA model to try and make a prediction on what my spend would likely be in the future. So here's a snippet of my data, which was just GL journal information that came out of a finance system. It's dummy data. And then I used the basic ARIMA model. I didn't do any training or anything like that, but it came up with a rubbish result. You can see that my data is very volatile, which is like the problem with some dummy data sets or inaccurate data is it's very gappy. So the forecast there is not at all what it should be. So I then did, off AI's recommendation, a bit of an analysis on volatility. And over time, the volatility was coming less, which again is an indication that the data is not great. So it just means that I have more data in the present than I did in the past, I guess, when looking at my data set. So I then ran a different model. Profit, again, goes back to that machine learning algorithm, and it gave a better result. But in reality, it's very rare that our costs will ever go down unless we've sold off part of the business or, we've had to go through a massive restructure. More likely that would go up. So in this instance, this is more an indication that my data set is rubbish rather than the fact that the algorithm is doing something incorrectly. So the algorithm, because it's built off data and it's only following a set of rules, is likely to be reasonably accurate. It's likely to be the data set where the accuracies are. So I got a little bit further with Profit. And then to simplify things and say, right, okay, well, if we do simple linear regression analysis, it's showing a downward trend. Yeah, which again just validated that my data set wasn't large enough. The models such as ARIMA that you need to train them beforehand are a pain. So I wouldn't recommend doing anything that requires training as part of this. And it's important to experiment with different models, because if you do experiment with different machine learning models, it's more likely that you're going to be accurate in your predictions. So that was my go at the spend side of things. Then I moved on to revenue forecast. So I had more data. Yeah, so I generated dummy data using Python, and I went through the same process. So here's my data. I went through that training process, which looked like it has succeeded. There wasn't any errors, but then the results it produced were just complete garbage, absolute garbage. So again, it just highlighted that even using AI to try and do some of this sort of stuff was going to produce failures. Yeah, so AI is good, but it's not that good that it can train me seamlessly on how to run machine learning algorithms from scratch. So tread carefully. Don't think that AI instantly is going to revolutionize your ability to run machine learning algorithms, because there is still a steep learning curve. But then what I did is I tried to simplify things. So ARIMA, it turns out, is actually a really difficult machine learning algorithm to use. So what I did is I started again from scratch. I instead used Profit plus a Plotly Dash. And the tools that I used were quite simple. So I used the Excel data set that I mentioned. I uploaded that data set to Google Colab, which is something called a Jupyter notebook. So it's just a place for you to run code. It's what you can see that snippet of at the top of this GIF. And then I asked the AI to produce a Plotly Dash, which is an interactive dashboard whereby we can see some of the stuff that's going on screen. So I don't know whether, it's going to reset. So we've got my existing revenue data, and then the orange shows the predictions or the forecast on what my revenue is going to do into the future. I can then slice by region, which I did there, and then I can zoom in to highlight different regions as well. So that was a success. But what you didn't see in the background was how much error handling I had to do. And this is one of the first things that I want to highlight between the beginning of this year and where we are now. So Copilot was trying to produce code for me off the back of it, not really understanding what my data was. Yeah, because AI doesn't see data in the same way that we do. Yeah, it doesn't see a screen with rows and columns. It sees strings, it sees floats, it sees, all of that technical stuff that we don't really talk about in day-to-day language. Developers do, but we don't. And I also used Copilot. I was going through an experimentation phase where I thought, right, well, can I literally do my entire workload through the Microsoft ecosystems? And I could to an extent, but as you'll see, there are some limitations in some of the Copilot stuff that we're more than aware of over the past sort of 3 to 6 months. All right, so lots of areas, but now all of these models are more advanced. So I'm seeing the amount of errors being produced reduce more and more. So it might have taken me half a day previously, maybe even a day. I can't remember. I didn't time it, but the time to get to your results is drastically reducing. Yeah, you will still get errors, especially if you're not a subject matter expert in machine learning algorithms, but the AIs are getting more intelligent to allow you to work with data in ways that you didn't previously think possible, because you have an AI assistant that you can specify. You are a machine learning expert. Help me run a machine learning algorithm against this data so that I can make a prediction. Yeah, and start there. Just keep things simple. Ask it, break this down into simple steps. Like, take me through chunk by chunk. Like, what's the simplest starting point to get going on this journey, and just see where you get. All right. So again, key takeaways: keep it low risk, experiment with the free tools. But if there is any level of complexity, then you might need an analyst or a data science who can use Python. Now, this segues into my next point on Python and Excel, but we're going to have our next question quickly. So what type of data is key to your reporting? And again, that will help inform some of my narrative over the remainder of the session as well. So Kevin, I don't know whether you want to quickly put that up on screen. Oh, okay. Didn't realize that was a free text. We might not need to share the results, Kevin.
No.
That's fine. That's a nice question.
Yeah.
I thought we had option selects for that.
I
Doesn't
didn't.
matter.
Never mind. Never mind.
It's all right.
Yeah.
Sometimes good to have questions. Stops me motoring too much.
Yeah, just give people a few minutes to type the answer into that one, Adam.
Yeah, fine.
Yeah.
Whilst people are answering, I suppose I can talk about some of the other stuff that we're going to be talking about later. So do tread carefully if you are using AI to start generating code. Yeah. So this is why I emphasize dummy data sets. Yeah, it goes without saying, don't try and feed live data into an AI to produce an algorithm, especially if there's a large data set. So maybe pick a few rows, like 100 rows of data, anonymize it, or create a dummy data set, and then get AI to guide you through the process as a starting point. But yeah, worth mentioning there.
If you're asking AI to write code, don't automatically assume the code is going to be correct.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I mean, you can validate it because it'll error if it's not correct.
Yeah.
But yeah, in that instance, start simple. Like I've had a lot of success in our courses with people generating VBA using AI. It's seen as a dated language, but it can still do a hell of a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I've only tried it, Adam, to generate Python. I had to throw some data at an API interface, which I had no idea how to do. So I thought, I'll ask the machine to write me some code.
yeah.
It wrote some. I tried it out, threw some error messages, gave the error messages back to AI. Oh, now understand what you want to do, Kevin. Here's some different code. Tried
Yeah,
again. I got a different set of error messages. Gave me some more code out of AI. Third attempt, it actually worked.
there we
I was
go.
quite impressed, considering I hardly know a line of Python.
Yeah, that's it. Well, yeah, Python is one of the most accessible languages. Some developers think it's too simple. Again, like I can't comment. But yeah, simple stuff like VBA, like some of the exercises we go through are taking, say, spreadsheets that have got option select columns for department, for example, and just get an AI to produce the VBA code to split the departments into different spreadsheets so that they can be sent to different individuals. Even get to the point where you could get your machine to generate the draft emails with the Excel spreadsheets as attachments. So it's that sort of stuff that people don't often think are use cases that are sometimes pretty cool. So should we do a countdown and we'll
Yeah, just a reminder, folks, 35% of you roughly that are in the webinar have responded to that question. Just a reminder that if you're looking to claim CPE points for this course, then we do need you to have answered the 3 polling questions that we'll have put up. So now, last few seconds to answer that one. If you're looking to claim CPE, put an answer in there quickly. And actually, for CPE purposes, it doesn't matter if your answer is rubbish. I'm very cynical about that one.
Enter data.
That's CPE, remember, folks, not CPD. Okay. So in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Poll closing. We'll end that poll.
I think you've got some questions to answer as well, Kevin. I'll let you respond to the chat messages.
Okay.
Cool. All right, let's get cracking then. So this is exciting stuff, or at least I think it is anyway. So I don't know whether anybody heard, but Microsoft have now deployed Python in Excel. So some of these machine learning and visualization methodologies that we've been through that I've been doing manually using tools like Google Colab are now available in Microsoft Excel. Now, again, I want to emphasize that right now, there is still a bit of a learning curve. There are now lots of Microsoft guides on getting started with Python in Excel, but Copilot in Excel is still to catch up. And I'll show you what I mean in a second. So let me just switch to showing my screen because I've just opened Python in Excel. So this is my Excel. Kevin, can you confirm that it's switched over to my Excel screen?
It has, yes.
Okay, cool. So what you can do is, assuming you've got the most up-to-date version of Excel, if you go into formulas, you'll see this little tab here called Insert Python. Yeah. And when you start clicking Insert Python for the first time, you'll get this little pop-up dialog that comes up here So we've got learn the basics, start the tour, and then we've got sample data as well. So if I go to my first sheet that it produced when I clicked start the tour, this is the dummy data set. And I think this is looking at eyes, iris data set. Yeah, so we've got width, length, species, or no, actually, no, it's petal length. It's flowers, not eyes. Silly me. So data set with flowers. And you can work through these. So I suggest doing it. Yeah, so start here, try it out. So you can see here, hints. Enter equals py in a cell and then select py from the autocomplete to enable Python formulas. Now, if you click on these little py icons here, you'll be able to see the data that it's loaded into the data frame. Now, we don't have time to get into discussions about data frames, but essentially, there's a logic in the background when you deploy these Python code snippets as formulas that references what you have loaded into the data frame. So in here, our data frame is this table here. Yeah, so we're not going to go through how to do that, but the point is all of these little pie icons here relate to the data frame here. Some of them are looking at the table in its entirety, but some of them will select a series. Yeah, so for example, this one is just pulling out the petal width. So these first three are running through how you segment your data and make sure the correct portion is loaded into the data frame. And then it goes on to visualization. So here, matplotlib, this is a Python library, and a library is basically just a preset bit of code. In this instance, it produces a visualization. So here, if I just make that a little bit bigger, we've got a visualization there that we managed to generate pretty quickly, and then a type of generation that is very difficult to produce in Excel. We've got this special type of visualization, which is a Seaborn library. And I can't remember the name of the chart, but it's got a special name and can be really useful for doing correlations, analysis, and all of that sort of stuff. So I'll get rid of those. But if you click on any of these insert samples, you can then bring up what Python's doing. And then clicking on any of these little cells where there's a Python link, you'll see the formula that's used, stating that it's a Python formula as opposed to an Excel formula. And then you can see here by switching on the output, whether you want to see the Python object value or the Excel value. So there's the ability to switch and query there as well. Different data sets, scatter plot, linear regression, which is similar to what I spoke about when I was looking at my spend analysis a little bit earlier, and pair plot. That's the term that I was missing from that initial header there. So if you work with the most up-to-date version of Excel on Microsoft 365, again, go into formulas, go into insert Python, click on start the tour and have a bit of a play and see where you get to. Yeah, so that's a starter for 10. But here's the limitation. And I know we've spoken about this quite a lot this year in terms of Copilot in Excel. So I do have Copilot in Excel. I invested earlier on this year because I thought, right, well, what if I just ditch ChatGPT and Claude and all of those other tools and I just use Copilot for everything? And it wouldn't it be nice if I had it in all of my Office applications as well? Now, I'm not an Excel pro, I'm good with Excel. So it is sometimes useful if I want it to suggest a column with a special formula or do a high level analysis. So I can go in and I can highlight a table, as many of you have probably done, and I can click on show data insights, and then it will look at the table and it'll analyze. Now, some of you guys on the session said that you're using Power BI. Now, there is a Copilot for Power BI, I believe, and the analysis function, or analyze or create insights, I think get insights was what it used to be called in Power BI, is doing exactly as we're seeing on screen here. But instead of it referring to an Excel table, it's referring to the data set that you've got in Power BI. So analyze data, get insights, whatever it happens to be. It's a very similar logic across your Microsoft applications to the point where we can Q&A data. So I'm not going to go through a full Q&A session here. But what I want to do is I want to see whether Copilot can help me produce a heat map or a visualization using Python. So I can say, can you create a heat map for this data using Python? Okay, and unless it's updated in the last hour, because I tested this about an hour ago, it's going to come back with an error saying, I am unable to write Python in Excel formulas yet, but here's a workthrough. Yeah. Now, this particular workthrough is not going to work in Excel because it's given the full Python code, which we could use in a dedicated platform, but not in Excel. And the reason behind this, and for anybody that's tried, this is the reason why. Copilot enabled for Python is still in public preview. And for you to get public preview of the new features, your administrator has to opt you into those public previews. And even if you're opted in, it depends on what region you're in as to when you get that rolled out. So I'm opted in for public preview to say, yes, I'll have a go with the new features. But because I'm in the UK and I'm in a specific region on a specific server, I've not had those updates rolled out yet, which is a bit frustrating because I'd love to be able to play with this sort of stuff. But don't panic. It's not anything to do with your setup or because something's broken. It's probably just the fact that you've got a release delay. Now, we go back to my presentation. I do have some GIFs. Now, this is from the Microsoft website, and this is what I wasn't able to do in Copilot showing you just there. So we've got Copilot enabled for Python. Can you forecast revenue? Blah, blah, blah. And you can see Saramax has come up, which is a predictive, it's a machine learning algorithm. Yeah. Similar to the ARIMA model, similar to the other ones that we looked at. But what it's doing is it's embedding this within Excel using Copilot to guide us through that analysis without us needing to have knowledge of Python. And this is where the barrier to entry gets lower. And again, tying it to my previous discussion, last time I had to set up several tools. I had to go through so much troubleshooting to get that model to work with my data to surface those predictions. But as soon as Copilot is enabled within Excel for Python, you can take your analysis to the next level within Excel. Instead of having to use Copilot, and again, we'll talk about some of the data tool limitations in a second, you are using Python generated by Copilot, which is more accurate, can handle larger data sets, and is likely to produce better visualizations for you. And then the same is here. So we've got another example of Copilot producing visualizations. So create 3 visualizations for me. Violin plots, got one of those. Don't know what the other plot was saying. Yeah, violin plots. And a pair grid, which is again a similar chart to what we saw previously as well. So as I say, if you've not seen these, just search for Copilot for Python in Excel, and it should take you through to these resources. So at least we can see it in preview. But within the next few months, anybody who's got Copilot for Microsoft 365 and Excel will be able to use it to generate Python without having to have knowledge of the way that Python works. So that is really exciting. All right. So let's go through some tool updates. And this is the stuff that I love. So we said from the question at the beginning that some of you guys are using ChatGPT, and you've even used the ChatGPT code interpreter or the advanced data analysis or whatever they decide that they're going to call it, right? First update is we've got a new model for paid subscribers. Okay? Now, if you're not a paid subscriber, I wouldn't worry too much. They do say it's got PhD level intelligence, and it is really good for complex use cases. But if you ask it about data analysis, it's just going to do analysis in the background. Yeah. So if it's producing code, using O1 to produce code, I've not found is drastically different than using the standard model to produce code. So if you are using it for data analysis, then I wouldn't worry too much. But it is interesting because we're moving to this scenario where AIs are able to think more. Yeah, so instead of it instantly producing a response back and you having to manually prompt it every time and sending a new chat message and sending a new chat message, it's thinking more in terms of outcomes. So you can see here, there's a arithmetic question or a science question. I don't know what a bounded sequence in R or a convergent sequence is, but it's highlighting the fact that it's an intelligence past what I understand. But either way, it's thought through that problem for 9 seconds, and then it's producing an output that is a very logical, reasoned, step-by-step review of that prompt.
Really quick, guys, as you know, I don't have sponsors on the show. So to help me, it would be great if you could share with just one other person, leave a review, give a thumbs up, and subscribe. It really does make a difference. Now back to the show.
Yeah, so we're seeing this agentic shift. So an agent is something that acts autonomously. So in the future, we're going to be able to set AI on a specific task without prompting it, and it's going to work out how to prompt itself until it reaches that objective. Just like a human, you set a human a task, it will think about what steps it needs to go through to complete, and then it will carry out those tasks in sequence until it's produced that. Like this presentation, for example, I generated the outline, I produced the content, and now I'm presenting to you. Yeah, very unlikely an AI is going to be able to do that anytime soon, but you hear what I'm saying, right? Second piece, and this is where I think some of you need to start having a look at Claude. Yeah, and I'm not saying that you must, again, adhere to your company policies or whatever it happens to be, but Claude is the ChatGPT equivalent from Anthropic. And ethically, and again, I don't want to speak out of turn, but I find that it is more squeaky clean than ChatGPT. So if you try and ask it to give you a book summary, it will say, oh, sorry, I can't produce any copyrighted material, whereas ChatGPT is a little less stringent on that sort of stuff. But what's quite nice about Claude is it produces something called an artifact. And an artifact, what you can see on the right here, is some data analysis. So I've uploaded some, this isn't me, but this is the example. Somebody's uploaded some sales funnel data, and it's actually generated that code in the background. And if you were to click that view analysis box in the middle there, it'd show you it's working out, which is essentially Python or Java in the background, whatever coding language it decides on, to the point where it's then going to preview it for you here. Very similar to ChatGPT now, where it produces that preview and you can interact with it in some instances. So that is the latest update we've seen with Claude. You can use it to analyze data and actually produce code to run accurate data simulations or data analysis. Yeah, so have a go, see how you get on. I think that's available in the free version, so you can test it. But again, don't use sensitive data. And then the next interesting thing, and it doesn't relate as much to data, but you could use it to carry out data-related tasks, is Claude. And again, it's not quite a desktop app yet, so it's still early stages. So this is more of a vision for the future than anything else. But you can use it to control your computer. And it sounds pretty scary because it is a little bit, but it is also a game changer in terms of AI assistance. So think of all those data tasks that you might have to carry out, like copy this, search for this, search for that. This example that you see on screen is Claude tied to somebody's computer. So you can see the thought process on the left. And the instruction is using either data from the spreadsheet or the portal tabs, find and list each field for a specific company. So ant equipment, we can't see the first part of the prompt, but we know from the response that they're looking for ant equipment. So what it's done is it's taken a screenshot. It's opened the vendor portal because it couldn't find any data in the screenshot that it understood that relates to those parameters. And it's moved the mouse, you can see that at the bottom left, it's moved the mouse over to the portal so that it can start typing. Now, in the no-code automation course that I run, we start things off by looking at Power Automate Desktop, which is available, I think, to everybody that's got a Windows machine for free. And Power Automate Desktop would allow you to do stuff similar to this. So you can record yourself carrying out some keyboard strokes and clicks, and then you can get Power Automate to carry on for you. Yeah, so I can go in, I can go to a website, I can download an invoice if they don't send it to me on the email, which is sometimes something that we have to do. And then I can get Power Automate to play that back and copy my steps. And I can then leave that running overnight. But this is the next level whereby we don't have to record ourselves doing something. We can just set the AI on the task, give it guidance, and it will try and carry out to its best ability. So watch this space. And then we've got a similar thing with Copilot Studio, which I'm going to whiz across in the interest of time, because I think we've only got another 10 or 12 minutes or so. But we're now able to build agents in Copilot. And the examples that relate to our data discussion today is stuff like budget management or searching for data within a specific system. Yeah, so you can train bots within your Microsoft ecosystem for specific purposes. So you could have a bot that helps you recall data from a certain location, have a bot that recalls data from one location and sends it to somebody else or notifies somebody else. So this is evolving now. Richard Nero is somebody you need to follow, by the way. So follow him on LinkedIn too. He leads one of our Excel courses, one of our XLF Excel courses, and he's done a lot of experimentation with Copilot agents. Yeah, and he did a recent LinkedIn post as well. So check that out. Go into Richard's post history and have a look at that to learn a little bit more there. But the key takeaways here are tools are getting better, not just at understanding, but also processing data. And I'll explain more as we go through some comparisons. AI models are getting better at thinking, and AI models are becoming more agentic, or even if that's a word. But what does this mean for finance? It means that it's becoming easier to work with data. So the times have gone by where you have to do an Adam and you have to generate code, open Google Colab, run your machine learning algorithms, fail dismally, get the AI to try and troubleshoot and still fail. We're now at the point where we don't even need to do that anymore because these tools can run that analysis in the background by themselves without us having to intervene. It's becoming easier to perform ad hoc analysis. So that Claude data analysis, or even the ChatGPT advanced data analysis, will perform really well with small data sets. So I'm finding now that you can upload data sets with hundreds of rows, yeah, and it can do an analysis. It will still come back with an error if the data set's too big to say, I can't process this amount of data. But for ad hoc analysis, if you're just doing some, say, variance reporting or want to spot some outliers in a small data set, you can do that in ChatGPT or Claude without having to invest in any dedicated tool. And then AI is becoming more accurate because instead of it guessing, it's now running code. And code, there is either a right or a wrong answer. Yeah, the code can be wrong, but the chance of a code producing a wrong output, if the code is correct, is very low compared to what previously the AI was doing, is in terms of trying to follow the patterns in the data that it didn't really understand and producing false results, which is why AI originally was always really poor with numbers. Yeah, and now AI is supporting more complex activities, as we saw with the AI agent. So before we start wrapping things up and give you some frameworks to start thinking about the right tools for the right AI use case, we've got our last question for today, which hopefully Kevin can put up on screen now, which is just to get an impression of what the state of your current data AI strategy is. And I think we've got a couple of options in this selection here. So Kevin will shortly put the poll on screen for you.
Kevin will, but Kevin has momentarily poll, Adam.
You've lost it, haven't you?
I've lost the poll completely. Oh, there it is. For some reason, it's gone right to the top of the list.
There we go.
I know why. It's because I edited that spelling mistake, Adam.
Fine. So very quick one for you guys. So what's the current state of your AI data strategy? Have you not started yet? Like, is it non-existent, not even thought about it? Are you in discussions about how to build AI into your data strategy? Have you already had the discussion you are planning? Are you in the process of investigating a specific tool or a specific methodology? And then lastly, are you actually operating an AI data tool? Yeah, so we'll give you a few minutes for that. Let me just...
Hey, we got lots of responses coming in. 50.
Good.
About 75% have responded. I'll give you a couple of minutes more. Remember that if you're after CPE credits in the United States, these poll questions are proof of your attendance. So please, please answer. Okay. I think we've given folk long enough. We got 78% of people have answered. So
cool. Let's see the results.
I think we'll end that one now and have a look at the results, Adam. Okay, end the poll. Share the results.
Boom. Okay, cool. It's great that we're in discussions.
Yeah, more in discussion there than I expected.
Yeah, that's really good. So hopefully sessions like this will inform these discussions. So hopefully I'm being useful to you. And even for those that don't have a strategy yet, again, you know, if you are planning on having discussions, then this helps as well. So the framework that I'm about to go through, as I say, you can share internally, have a discussion, use it as the path, the happy path, I guess, to making these decisions and go from there. So, no, all good. So let's finish with how to think about data. We're going to do a comparison of some of these tools so that you understand their limitations. We're going to then look at a framework for determining what tool to use for different types of data tasks. And then we're going to give you a bit of a step-by-step of how you can start having a play if you're not having a play already. So this, again, is a snapshot taken from some of the training that we do. So I think of data in three categories. So preparation, analysis, and visualization. Yeah, before you can analyze, the data needs to be clean and well formatted. And again, you can use AI for preparation. And before you can visualize, there needs to be some element of analysis that's happened. So again, going back to the machine learning and the predictive analytics side of things, you can only visualize something once that analysis has been carried out and you've got output data that can be visualized. You don't have to go into detailed analysis to produce visualizations, as we saw. Like, there are some quick ways of producing visuals and without going through loads of analysis steps, especially if you're using Copilot to generate insights, for example. And again, when Python starts emerging into Excel, that's going to make that easier as well. So we look at tool comparisons, and you'll see why I've set up those data categories when we come back to some of the step-by-steps. I won't stay here long, but we can see now that the majority of all of these AI tools will allow you to do the majority of their features for free. Yeah, the limitation now is the usage limits. Yeah, so in ChatGPT and Claude, you can use the data analysis, like you can use voice in ChatGPT, you can generate images in ChatGPT and SVGs in Claude, but to a point. Yeah, so you can only have short conversations before it comes up to say, come back in an hour, 2 hours, or whatever, or pay. Yeah, but you do get some advantages with paying. So for example, you can build bots, and again, completely different discussion. We cover it in the AI chatbots course. But to create a bot for a custom use case, you've got to pay in both ChatGPT and Claude. In Claude, it's referred to as a project. In ChatGPT, it's referred to GPTs. And the best way I see a bot is just a specific prompt for a specific task. Yeah, so you could have a data commentary bot, for example. So I can set up a GPT that says, your task is to analyze data that I upload and provide a commentary in this format. Data commentary is something that we do quite often, right? So if we've got a template, we've got a structure, if we've got type of language that we use, then we can feed that to AI and get it to do the heavy lifting for us. And then we can focus on the real nuggets within that analysis without having to write out all of that commentary from scratch. You know, a bot is a great use case just so that you can standardize that process. Ad hoc, you don't need to create a bot. Obviously, just come to the AI whenever you need to. But hopefully, you can see the way that that is moving now. Recently, Google introduced Gems, which is their version of bots. And then Microsoft Copilot, you've got Copilot. So again, use this comparison if it helps you. Looking at limitations now, firstly, we'll look at data volume, and there's probably some Excel gurus and some, if there's any data scientists on the call, they might tell me off. This is not accurate, but it's rough. So when we look at different approaches to AI analysis, we might want to use an AI tool, but as I said previously, you know, you want to have like a limited number of rows. I even think that maybe 2,000 is too much for some of these chatbots like ChatGPT in terms of data size. And you're going to get a pretty good accuracy if it's running code in the background. Yeah, so ChatGPT and Claude will analyze using code, so you can get anywhere up to 100% accuracy depending on how complex your analysis query is. Now, when it comes to the bottom here, you can see the third down, we've got AI generated code. This is what you saw me doing earlier on in the session, where I was generating the code and then pulling it out so I could run it in a dedicated coding platform to run that code. That's going to be more accurate than getting AI to run the code, especially if you're using more data. Yeah, so you can validate the code, you can troubleshoot the code offline and make sure that it is accurate before running it. And then, of course, the most accurate way of doing anything is getting a dedicated tool or an expert. Of course, the prerequisite there is that your data is clean and you've got whatever data lakes and data warehouses set up if you know you've got the complexity of data to warrant that. But obviously, having a dedicated tool or an expert is always going to be the best way to ensure accuracy. And then in terms of complexity, it's a similar concept. Yeah, so any AI chatbot is going to enable you to do simple analysis if the data is not too much, especially if you're using a tool that can execute the code. Again, there's less errors executing code than there is just an AI trying to analyze data without executing that code in the background. And that's a point to emphasize that it does execute code automatically in the background, so you don't need to worry about running. That's what happens when ChatGPT does that analysis thing. If you click on analysis in ChatGPT, it'll open it up and you'll be able to see the code that is generating in the background. If you go into the settings in ChatGPT, you can say, I always want your analysis to show, so you don't have to keep clicking on it to see the code that is generating in the background. And from a learning and development perspective, that's really useful because you always see the code that is generated in the background. And then it's the same with the higher levels of complexity where you might want a dedicated tool or an expert to make sure that you're being accurate in the way that you analyze and forecast using data. So when we put all of this together, I've got a framework for you. It's a basic framework, but it's a framework nonetheless, and it is called START. Size, type, accuracy, resource, and time. So it emphasizes what we've already spoken about at first. Before we start thinking about a tool, we need to understand what the size of our data set is. Complexity can also be bundled in size. I didn't think START would be a good framework. So for now, we're bundling complexity in with size. Then we've got type. So what type of task is it? Are we prepping Do we want to do automation? Do we need to tidy? Are we analyzing? Are we visualizing? We need to decide on that. What level of accuracy do we need? We need to bear in mind that the more accurate we want our results, the more time we're going to need to invest, or the more money we're going to need to invest with either a dedicated tool or a dedicated resource. And that then ties into resource. Do we have the budget for a dedicated tool, or do we have skills that can upskill internally to use some of these new tools, like generating machine learning algorithms or using Python and Excel, especially if they've got a Copilot license now that enables them to chat to Copilot to generate Python for analysis. And then time. There's not a lot of point in investing in these complicated systems if you are trying to solve for an ad hoc task or an ad hoc project. So only think about investing and spending any time on this if you have repeat challenges, repeat time lost. Yeah, a load of people that are either manipulating data or having to merge 6 or 7 different spreadsheets to run analysis, and then struggling to run analysis because they're only got Excel with pivot charts, for example. So these are the questions that we need to start asking ourselves in that framework, which will then lead to us landing on one of these tool types by category. And again, I'm not going to read through all of them. You can get a copy of the slides and read through them yourself. But on the left, we've got manual. On the right, we've got custom tools. Custom, time-consuming, expensive. Manual, flexible and free in a lot of instances. But of course, you are going to get the most value at the right end of the spectrum. It's just how far right you want to go. So my suggestion is as many people as possible need to land in that middle of using that AI to perform those tasks to support our own activities. Yeah, so having to play with uploading data to some of these platforms, experimenting with generating code or generating Python in Excel when Copilot turns up, so that you can make use of that low-hanging fruit to produce, at least at the very basic, of visualization to make those presentations and to get that stakeholder buy-in when you do present this data and make it more accessible to non-finance professionals. Yeah, so get going with that as soon as possible. And then if you have a dedicated use case, so if you are running multiple scenarios and you are needing to do complex predictions because you've got complex data, then look at off-the-shelf platforms or custom tools. There's plenty of FP&A platforms out there. We've got a load in our tech communities, Planful, Acteris, Pigment. We had a showcase not too long ago, so give us a shout. We can make some recommendations and hook you up with the right people. And then as a last resort, spend some money on custom tools. Just be aware that it is going to be the most complex approach. All right. So here's my call to action for you to get started before we wrap up. So generate some random data. You might have done this already. Yeah. So you can use Mockaroo, which is pretty cool. You just specify the rows and columns that you want and it will generate some random data for you. That's pretty cool. Or you can find an existing data set. So I put a link to Kaggle there, but if you just search online for open source data sets, there's loads that you can download stuff from. And then upload your data. Yeah, ask a preparation question, ask an analysis question, and ask a visualization question just to get experimenting and start seeing the power of some of these tools, especially if you're still using Excel, and then wait until you've got Copilot for Python in Excel. And that might be the reason that you actually then invest in Copilot for Microsoft. Yeah, it's not been great in Excel today. It's been good, but it's not been life-changing. But I do think that when we have Python alongside our data with Copilot to help us generate that Python code, we are going to be able to do so many more things in Excel than was previously possible. If you've got any questions, feel free to give me a shout. So my quote, as I say, it's my quote. It's probably somebody else's that I've regurgitated, right? Don't use AI to do stuff for you. Use AI to do stuff with you. Connect with me on LinkedIn. You've got my email at GrowCFO. All of our GrowCFO emails are just first name dot second name at growcfo.net. And make sure that you check out XLF as well. Yeah, so I believe we're offering 6 credits for free. Kevin, jump on me if I'm incorrect about that. There we go. So you've got the link there at the bottom, free credit. Try out one of the courses. Of course, I'm biased. I want you to try out my courses. As you can probably tell, I'm quite passionate about all of this sort of stuff. So AI chatbots and no-code automation. Head over there, sign up.
We've just run those 2, haven't we? So we're about to. We haven't put the dates in the diary yet for the next ones, but
that's it. Yeah. So we're still finishing off the no-code cohort for this month. So workshop 3, which is our last session, will be next Tuesday. We did the second yesterday on my birthday. which is fine. I love doing these sessions, so I don't mind doing that sort of stuff. And then, yeah, next Tuesday will be the last one. It's then looking like the next cohort for both courses will start January, February next year, which is why we've got dates TBC. But do sign up. Just because you get the free credits doesn't mean that you have to check out with them straight away. So there's no harm in just going. And as I say, give us a message if you've got any questions about anything. It doesn't have to relate to XLF. You want to speak to me about AI and automation offline, then just give us a shout. As I say, I'm always on LinkedIn, always available for a conversation, and hopefully we'll see you soon. And I think we're coming up to time, which gives us a 5-minute break before our KPI session. So there we go. Thanks
back
for listening.
in minutes with the KPI session. Adam, thank you very much. That was brilliant. I would have loved to have gone into Q&A there, but we really just don't have time. One thing that I'd really like to ask folk, if you found that really interesting and you've got any great comments or feedback on it that we could perhaps use to quote, please just type something in the chat. We'll leave this open for another minute or so you can do that before we shut down. But Adam, that was fascinating.
Thank you.
Right. Okay.
I'll be back. Probably already lined up for the next summit.
Yeah.
Where no, it's just fascinating to see how all of this is evolving and how much easier it's becoming to do all of this sort of stuff. So, and it's what I said from the very beginning. This time last year, I was saying you don't need to worry about AI because it will be built into the tools that you use every day. And lo and behold, that's what's happening. But people still need direction on the right tools for the right use cases. And that's why sessions like this are useful, because it saves that confusion and it limits that risk in making a decision. So it's a pleasure to be able to present.
Hey again, and thanks for listening. If you enjoyed what you heard today, don't forget to like, review, and subscribe. And for more goodies, head over to adamshilton.com. Until next time, bye.